Good morning and welcome to today's International Space Station update. Crew awoke today at about midnight Central Time and started off their day with some morning prep work and then a daily planning conference where they discussed the day's activities with ground controllers all across the globe. Commander Dan Burbank, his major activity for the day is updating the Cuckoo, which is CUCU, which stands for the COTS UHF Communications Unit, COTS being the Commercial Orbital Transport Services. And then the updates he's doing are in anticipation of the launch of the SpaceX Dragon capsule. This update will allow that comm unit to provide station-to-Dragon communication for any commands and telemetry reading. That was planned to take up about 4 hours of his day and also included a checkout of the COTS command panel. Other work that he's doing today included the integrated cardiovascular ambulatory monitoring setup, which he did some of that yesterday, and that experiment determines just how much cardiac atrophy occurs during a space flight and how fast it develops. And then this is due to the microgravity environment that the astronauts are subject to during their expeditions. And that will study whether this atrophy causes any problems with the heart's pumping or its electrical function, and how both the atrophy and any associated changes develop. And for that today, he's changing out the data recording card and a battery to continue another 24-hour recording period. Later in the day, he got some exercise in the CVIS and the ARED devices, the CVIS being a stationary cycle and the ARED being more of a standard muscle workout system. But the astronauts can do things like squats and arm workouts to help fight that bone density loss and muscle atrophy as they float around in the microgravity environment of the International Space Station. Getting a look now here at the ARED device. Again, that stands for the Advanced Resistive Exercise Device. And that helps the astronauts, again, keep those muscles and bones strong while they're on board the station for extended periods of time. Later on in the day, Commander Burbank will do some more work with the Combustion Integrated Rack Alignment Guides. The Combustion Integrated Rack is an experiment that provides an optics bench and a combustion chamber and a number of cameras and oxidizer controls, and is used to perform combustion experiments in the unique microgravity environment on board the station. Later in the day, he was scheduled to do some journals entry, which is an ongoing experiment that studies any isolation or confinement stressors of spaceflight that can affect crew health and morale. But due to some delays this morning with the Cuckoo update, he may not be able to get to that in time. His last scheduled activity for the day will be to close some shutters on the windows of the US segment in preparation for a planned reboost. Russian cosmonaut Anton Shkaplerov started his day with some work on the Molniya experiment, transferring some data and tagging up with ground specialists. This is an investigation of any optical emissions in the Earth's atmosphere and ionosphere associated with any thunderstorm or seismic activity. There you can see Anton Shkaplerov, the Russian cosmonaut and flight engineer of Expedition 30. Later, he spent a few hours doing some more cargo transfer from the 45 Progress vehicle, which docked back on November 2nd, and in conjunction with that, doing some updates to the station's inventory management system, making sure everything is in place. Later, he got a workout in on the TVIS, which is one of the treadmills on board the station, before returning to that Molniya experiment to perform setup work and downlink work to renew data collection. The last experiment he's scheduled to interact with is the Interactions experiment, which is a setup of weekly questionnaires that are used to identify any interpersonal factors that may impact the performance of the crew and their ground support personnel during their expeditions. Rounding out the crew of Expedition 30 is Russian cosmonaut Anatoly Ivanishin, who earlier this morning ended the 24-hour electrocardiogram experiment that he began yesterday, and that was studying his heart's functions over a day's time. That experiment, part of the Pneumo card collection of experiments, which is a Russian investigation that helps understand any of the mechanisms of adapting the cardiorespiratory system to the microgravity spaceflight conditions, studying the synchronization of heart activity and breathing factors, as well as the cardiorespiratory system's control processes. He got some exercise time in on the ARED and TVIS devices, the TVIS being one of those treadmills on board the station, before doing some routine replacement work on the Russian toilet system. He'll then take a few hours to continue transferring items from the crew's Soyuz vehicle to TMA-22, and then checking out everything in the station's inventory management system. The crew will then have a second daily planning conference at the end of the day before moving into their pre-sleep period, where they perform any wrap-up work or get-ahead work for the day's activities tomorrow, before moving into their sleep period at 3:30 p.m. Central Time. After the crew goes to sleep, a reboost is currently scheduled to take place at 5:11 p.m. Central Time, and this will be in order to position the station in its proper attitude for the launch and docking of the Soyuz TMA-03M spacecraft, planned to launch on December 21st, which will carry the remainder of the Expedition 30 crew, rounding out that expedition and bringing the station back up to a 6-person rotation.